All right, well, let's get started. The afternoon has two parts. The first part is about electrifying your wheels. And that is going to be presented by Don Price. Go for it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Don Price, and that's what I do. I talk about electric vehicles. I'm a member of EV Advocates of Ventura County, and that's what we all do. We come out and talk to people, answer questions, and try to promote the electric vehicle lifestyle. But first, let me tell you why this is important. This is a chart of greenhouse gas emissions for California in 2021. And you can see the big blue pie slice on the bottom left. That's 39% transportation. That's why we feel this is so important, because a big part of the greenhouse gas emissions we emit every year are due to transportation. So this is an electric vehicle. Anybody here remember the EV1 from the mid-90s? A couple of people, yeah. Well, I was working at the Air Pollution Control District then, and we had one on loan from GM for a couple of months, and I got to drive it. That's actually me in the picture. It was a fun car. It was two-seater. It was pretty quick, sporty, but you could only drive it about 40 or 50 miles, and you needed to charge it up again. So it wasn't really very practical. But as many of you may know, EVs have been around for a long time. The late 1890s and the early 1900s, there were electric vehicles, and they were very popular. This is a 1909 Detroit Electric. And actually, Detroit Electric made EVs into the 1930s, so they were fairly successful. Of course, we have better electric vehicles now: the Ford Mustang Mach-E, Volkswagen ID.4, Nissan Leaf. Most cars, EVs in this category, have a range of about 250 miles or so. The Nissan Leaf is a little less, it's about 212. But that's kind of an average. There are some vehicles out there, though, that have a little bit more range. This Chevy Equinox was just released by GM. And the Teslas have, many of them have a range that's in the 300 to 350 mile range, which is really pretty good. Many of you may have been outside to see me. I have a Hyundai Ioniq 5. It has a range of about 260 miles according to the manufacturer, but I'm right now sitting at 290 miles, and I'm not quite sure why, but I have a lot of range. A lot of other electric vehicles out there. The Rivian company has two, a pickup truck and an SUV. We have a Ford F-150 Lightning pickup outside, a couple of Cybertrucks. GM is releasing the Hummer as an EV coming up. This is a weirdball electric vehicle that is supposed to be coming out someday, the three-wheeled Aptera Luna. And they are saying that it might have up to 1,000-mile range, depending on whether they can put solar panels on that back area. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully this will come out someday. Other electric vehicles: dune buggies, locomotives, small tractors, vertical takeoff and landing jets. We have long-haul trucks, motor coaches, and school buses, all electric. Many electric school buses here in Ventura County. So electric vehicles are really the thing. They're the state of the art at the moment, and that is what we're all encouraging you to take a look at. But that's a very good point. I'm sorry it's not on my slides, but it does exist. It does exist, and it's a great car. His is outside. Take a look at it. But we also still have plug-in hybrids. These are electric vehicles that have a gasoline engine and a gas tank also, in addition to the battery and electric motors. So there's a lot more technology involved in these, and some of these plug-in hybrids can be driven for a certain number of miles on the battery only. In this case, 39, 38, 37, 41 miles. It doesn't compare really very well to the all electrics, which, as I said, range from 250 to 350 miles range. So I'm not particularly promoting them, but I did own a plug-in electric for many years. I had a Chevy Volt, which had a 60-mile range on the battery, which was pretty good. I could drive pretty much anywhere in Ventura County and not use any gasoline, which I did quite often. And it was a very good car. I had very little trouble with it. So I'm going to talk now a little bit about charging. Everybody always asks us about charging. How do you charge the electric vehicle? There are basically three levels of charging, 1, 2, and 3. Level 1 is house current, charging on house current, and that's what this is for. This is my house current charger. It has a regular plug that you plug into the wall. This goes into the car. You can add about you can add about 5 miles of range for every hour of charging. So it is slow. It's very slow. Sometimes it can take up to 40 hours to charge from 30% to perhaps 90%. So it does take a while, but it's easy to do and you can do it in your garage. And if you have the time, I'm retired, I have the time, it's no problem to let it charge as much as it needs to. Now, level 2 is also something you can do at home. It uses 220 instead of 110 power. So you add about 30 miles of range for every hour of charging. So that means that pretty much any electric vehicle can be charged to 90% or so overnight, no problem. So if you do a lot of driving, you should be able to do it with a level 2 charger every day and be able to go wherever you need to go. Level 3 is a public charging. The stations that you see around the EVgo, Electrify America, Charge Point, those are the most common here in Ventura County. They can be very fast. I can charge my Hyundai from 30% to 80% on a DC fast charge in 15 minutes. So it's really very quick. And this is what you need when you're traveling. You don't want to sit around waiting for a charge. So these are available. They're a little more expensive than charging at home, actually about twice as expensive, but it's available and it's there for all of us to use. These are what the plugs look like, really very briefly. Top left is the J1772 plug. That's the level 1 and level 2 plug I was talking about. The level 3 plug looks very similar, except it has 2 ports on the bottom. That's the bottom left. And then on the bottom right is the Tesla plug, which is completely different. And that's why people like me can't use the Tesla chargers, at least not at the moment. So these are examples of home charging stations you can get for your house to do level 2 charging. Level 2 charging, that's the pretty much overnight charging. Now, these can be a little bit expensive to install and purchase, about $1,000 total. But there hopefully someday will be rebates on this. We'll have to see how that goes. But this is kind of what you're looking for. Now, this is a EVgo fast charging station, 350 kilowatts. You'll see these around. And this is, of course, the Tesla charging station. We've all seen these all over the place too. And as I was mentioning, we might be able to start using Tesla charging in the future. This company is putting out adapters that you can plug into your other car and use the Tesla charging system. So hopefully this technology will be worked out in the future pretty quickly and we'll be able to access all of those charging stations. Incentives. There are tax credits for new clean vehicles, a maximum of $7,500. There are a bunch of qualifications, but most of them are pretty easy. Battery capacity of 7 kilowatt hours, no problem. Gross vehicle weight under 14,000 pounds, no problem. Made by a qualified manufacturer. Qualified manufacturers tend to be manufacturers in the US or free trade partners. And then finally, undergo final assembly in North America, probably a free trade partner as well. But there are those requirements. Now, this $7,500 is actually, this is a little bit technical, but I thought it might be interesting for you to know, is actually broken up into two parts, and both parts revolve around the battery, the vehicle battery. One part is the critical minerals, 3750 depends on the percentage of materials processed or extracted in the US or by a free trade partner. And then the other half, 3750, is battery components. The rest of the battery case and all of the other components and wiring and everything has to be manufactured or assembled in North America. So these percentages change. It's kind of why you need to check individual cars, and I'll get to that in a minute. There's also MSRP caps and income caps. This can all be taken care of. So there's a lot of things to go through, but these incentives are definitely out there. Now, all of this, I don't know if you can tell, is from the IRS website. But if you really want to know about individual vehicles, the place to go is the Department of Energy website, www.fueleconomy.gov. That's the place to go. This is a screenshot of their webpage at the top page, and you can't see that, and I can't really see it either. But the green box, in the center there is telling us that as of 2024, all of this paperwork, all of these decisions, whether it qualifies, doesn't qualify, batteries, blah, 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 all of that is going to be settled at the dealer. So if you buy an electric vehicle and you exit the dealer, you should have paperwork in your hand that says you're qualified and you've got this much money coming. You do have to have a tax debit in order to get a tax credit, but if you have everything in hand, you'll have the paperwork and you'll be ready to go. So it's making it a lot easier. But in order to find out if you have a specific car in mind, this website is where to go. They have a list of all kinds of vehicles. There's only a dozen manufacturers. Of course, there are a lot more car manufacturers, but many of them don't qualify. My Hyundai new would not qualify. It's made in Korea. So until they start making them here, they don't qualify. But I entered Chevrolet in this case and said any model, and it pulled up 4 models: the Blazer, the Bolt, and the new Equinox. The Blazer is pretty new EV also. So those all qualify for $7,500. And then I pulled up Tesla and came up with a list of a number of Tesla vehicles. Not all Tesla vehicles are on the list, so not all of them qualify for a tax rebate. So you really have to check and make sure which vehicle you want and if it qualifies for a tax credit. There's also tax credits for used electric vehicles up to $4,000. A couple of requirements, not too many, must be at least 2 years old and must be under $25,000. And you have to buy it from a dealer. But if you qualify, there's a lot of opportunity out there. I've got 4 examples. This is a 2022 Chevy Bolt EUV 23.9. So that would get $4,000. 2022 Tesla Model 3 standard range, $25,000 is the selling price. So it would qualify for $4,000. This 2018 Nissan Leaf is being offered for $10,343, which is 73,000 to 74,000 miles. That's pretty good. But it would only get 30% of that as a rebate, so about $3,000. But then again, the last one, Tesla Model 3 standard range again, 24,000 would qualify. So there's a lot of opportunity to get into an EV that's used and get a rebate and also get a pretty good car to boot. So this is something I would encourage many people to do. Really quickly, fuel cell vehicles are out there. A fuel cell vehicle is an electric vehicle that makes the electricity inside the car. And of course, it's not free. You need something for that. You need hydrogen. So where do you get hydrogen? Good question. There aren't that many places around here for us here in Ventura County. There's a lot of stations in LA and Orange County, as you can see on this map, the green dots. There's a lot of red dots also, which are stations that are out of service, non-operational, whatever. We only have one in Thousand Oaks here in Ventura, and I think there's one in Santa Barbara also. But pretty much it's difficult to own a fuel cell vehicle here in Ventura County. Personally, I'm hoping that we can move trucks like this for short-term or maybe possibly even long-term trucking situations, which will be much cleaner than the diesel trucks we're using right now. So that's my hope for the fuel cell at the moment. Vehicle to load home and grid. This is a situation where you can use your electric vehicle to power a load, an outside load, power your home, or send power into the grid. Not all electric vehicles do this yet, but it's getting rolling. It's starting to come up. The Nissan Leaf was the first one to do that. There's a Mitsubishi and then the Ford F-150 Lightning and the Tesla Cybertruck. They are all heavily equipped with electrical outlets. The Hyundai Kia group, which is a bunch there towards the bottom of the list, they have a capability that's somewhat limited. This is actually the device that you plug into your electric vehicle. This is mine. You plug it into the car, and then there's one 15 amp outlet right here that you can use. Now, mine is the lowest model. The higher models have electrical outlets inside the car as well. Mine does not. I have to use this, but this is available, and these are available for the Kias, EV6, EV9, Kia Niro, the Genesis. And according to GM, all of their 2024 EVs are capable of all of these things. So this is really good. We're really making progress on this. One of the things I wanted to point out is that if you do buy an F-150 Lightning pickup, say, as an example, it has a 98 kilowatt hour battery. And if you wanted the same amount of battery power in your house, you'd need 7 Tesla Powerwalls, and it would cost more money. So suppose you bought a Lightning with an extended battery pack of 131 kilowatt hours, you would need 9.5 Tesla Powerwalls, and they'd cost $114,000 as opposed to 68 or so for the F-150 Lightning. So my conclusion is obvious. If you really want backup power, just buy a really cool electric vehicle and use it when you need it. That's what we're offering here. So if you want to learn more about electric vehicles, the EV Advocates of Ventura County have an electric vehicle event we're having at Ventura Harbor on October 6th of this year. We should have around 60 to 80 cars out there. All of our owners will be there. We'll all be willing to talk to you about it. So if you're really interested, come out and visit us and drive electric. Thank you. Any questions? That's what I'm here for. Questions?
Hold on, hold on.
I have a Ford C-Max hybrid, 2017. The battery's not doing, the electric EV battery's not doing what it used to. It's supposed to get 20 miles. Can those batteries be replaced with a more powerful battery?
I don't know specifically. That's a good question. That's an older model. When I had the Volt, it was starting to show a little bit of age. It was a 2017 also. And when I traded it in about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, it was starting to inch down just a little bit, but not as much, it sounds like, as yours. So I don't know if it can be replaced, Don. Sorry, I can't answer that one.
Hi, Don. If I may,
Wayne is very knowledgeable, so yes.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this vehicle to grid and vehicle to home aspect of the new EVs. And the manufacturers are coming out I believe most manufacturers are coming out with that capability in 2025. But one thing that's really cool is that if, you have a blackout for a long time, a power outage, you can go to some remote place, charge up and come back and power your house. So, you know, if there's a fire in your area, you can charge up, go back home and keep your food going, you know, refrigerated. So I'm really excited about this. And
That's-
it does
that's-
save a lot of money.
That's the benefit I see, because if I have this attachment, it's only 15 amps, but I figure I can power my refrigerator during a blackout for 2 or 3 days, probably, just from the car alone. Yeah, Paul.
Oh, in the black t-shirt.
sorry. Yeah.
I had read a report that with that vehicle to load output of the EV6 and the Hyundai, that you could power a normal refrigerator for about 2 weeks at the time, because the refrigerator isn't constantly on. So it only when the temperature drops below a certain, or goes above a certain point, will it kick on. So 2 weeks is.
Yeah, that's
is
cool. I
what
was just guessing, but that's great.
Is it on? So this is just a comment, but it occurs to me if you like to camp, that would be a great thing to have. You could get a single burner induction cooktop and use it for your cooking, and then you could run your lights too.
Yeah, anyone who wants to see that in action at the SCE booth, we are currently running an induction demo off of Kent Bullard's Cybertruck right now. So boiling water all day. I wanted to share on the level 1 and 2 charging at home, my own experience. So I finally bought an EV at the beginning of this year. And part of it was because as of January, the whole $7,500 got streamlined and available at the dealership. So it was just such a seamless type of thing, you know, with a qualifying vehicle to just walk in there and, you know, it's all taken care of. It's just like getting it off the sticker. But, you know, it took us a couple of months before we kind of worked out getting an electrician out to do an upgrade because we wanted to do the level 2 charging. But what we found is that the level 1 actually met our needs pretty well most of the time for those couple of months when we were just starting out. You know, the average American drives an average of like 40 miles a day. And if you're getting 5 miles an hour on that level 1 charging, you know, that replenishes your daily mileage for most cases overnight.
How come you guys were only boiling water there? How about, you know, some scrambled eggs or something? I mean, I'm a total believer in induction cooking.
So I'll just add, you can get a 1450 outlet. It's like a dryer outlet, an electric dryer outlet. And I mean, it will do, see, I think I get about 20 miles an hour of charging with that. And that's relatively inexpensive as well.
Essentially a level 2. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to talk about range anxiety later on in the panel. So if you want to stick around for that, at least my experience with it.
Hi there. I read that Hertz gave up half of their electric vehicle fleet because people didn't know how to drive them. Has your
Yeah.
experience been that they are a different driving experience that a ordinary driver might need some learning curve on?
My experience, this is one of the things I'm going to talk about later. I just rented a Tesla Model 3 in Chicago to drive from Chicago to Nashville. But I'm an EV driver, so it wasn't a big stretch for me. So I didn't have any problems. I knew exactly what to do. And most EV drivers would do it. But to your point, yes, people are really confused. They don't know what to do. So they need a little basic instruction on really how to charge it and where to go and things like that. The car will tell you where to charge. It says you need to stop here for 15 minutes and you do it. You know, it's easy. But you really need a little bit of basic instruction to really get going. So that may be why Hertz is having so many problems. Yeah. I've heard of the same thing from a couple of people.
All right. Well, with that, let's thank the speaker.
We have one more question.
My EV anxiety is around speeding tickets.
Yeah, when you're getting on the freeway in an EV, you know you got to get up to the speed of the traffic going by, and the EV can do it. But you're probably violating some speed law for that moment that you're racing up the on-ramp. Power corrupts.
I'm not a car person at all. I just get in the car and drive it, and I've got an all-electric EV, and I just got in the car and I drove it, and there was really no problem. Figuring out how to charge it when you have to go to a charging station, that takes some time, but driving it, I don't understand the difference.
But the EV, you don't have to turn on and turn off, at least the kind I have. You just get in and sit down and put it in drive and it goes. And but when I get out, I just close the door and the radio is still playing, but I guess it knows enough to go off eventually. So the button is probably going to go away eventually.
Mention it to me. Is it on? Testing. Somebody here told me that when Tesla first started out, they installed their technology in old Toyota SUVs. Is that y'all here that told me about that? And, do you know anything about that and how that compared to the technology these days? And
Well, that was a long time ago before they had their system now, so I never heard that rumor. That's interesting. It's possible because if they needed to test it, they could put it in a vehicle and test it, yeah. But I don't know about it. Sorry.
All right. Good questions. Let's thank the speaker. And now we have our panel discussion. Wayne Morgan, George Vine, and Don Price. The future is now.
Good afternoon. Good to see all of you. My name is Wayne Morgan. I'm a retired engineer and I live in Ventura. I'll be going over some of my slides very quickly. A lot of the slides that I have been already presented by other speakers. The last slide of the presentation has links and a QR code that will take you to a folder that has many of my references that are used in this presentation, as well as the slide deck. So this slide shows a gold medallion award that a friend gave me after I converted my home to all electric. Many of these electric homes were built in the 60s, 1960s and 70s and were touted as technically advanced. How is it that I came to converting our house to all electric? Well, my journey started in 2006 when I attended a class reunion and some of the guys were talking about solar panels. And I thought to myself, hey, I'm an engineer. I can do that. Why haven't I done it yet? So the next year I installed solar panels on our house. And this is my journey. So in 2007, we got a hybrid electric vehicle. And in 2012, when EVs came out, we decided to get an EV. We got a Ford Focus Electric, which had a range of all of 63 miles. But it was really fun to drive, and we could go downtown from where we lived in Northridge and back without charging. So it was more practical than than people give it credit. And then we got a Tesla in 2015, and at that point on, we only have driven electric vehicles. In 2019 is when I started electrifying our home. We bought a home in 2018 here in Ventura, and I decided to convert it to all electric because I wanted to see what the future of electricity would be, and that was my dream. So what is my dream for the future? Clean air quality. There have been many reports and studies that have shown that indoor air quality can be a problem. especially nitrogen dioxide emissions. And here's another study that also shows that. And it didn't really occur to me until later on that nitrogen dioxide is heavier than air. So this nitrogen dioxide is going to settle more towards the floor where children and pets spend lots of time. So that is not a good thing. Also, cleaner outdoor air. We all know that, outdoor air can be, smog and petrochemicals can give us bad air quality. What else? And these are some of the concerns about burning fossil fuels. Cleaner water. How can you go swimming or get drinking water or go fishing with waters that are polluted? And healthier oceans. Our oceans have been heating up because 90% of the heat that is trapped by the excess heat that's trapped by greenhouse gases are absorbed by the ocean. So that heating of the ocean is resulting in coral being dying, and that destroys fish habitat. So that's one issue. Also, the carbon dioxide is causing the ocean to be more acidic. So shellfish are having trouble with generating their shells. And what to electrify? Well, this shows us, and I think we've seen this before, but transportation and residential buildings use a significant amount of electricity. And that's, the energy. And that's some sectors that we can electrify. So what do we electrify? Electrify everything we can. And there's a professor at Stanford named Mark Jacobson he wrote a book, No Miracles Needed, where he outlines how we can do this with the technology that we have right now. All we have to do is commit to doing it. So with solar, wind, and hydro, we can meet our needs right now. All of our needs. And one thing is that the electric appliances are so much more efficient than gas appliances. We only need to replace around 50% of our energy with electric. We don't have to replace all of that energy. What will the future home look like? I think people have gone through this, but they'll be well insulated. They'll be all electric. They'll have solar panels, home storage with batteries, and you can use the EVs as batteries, as Don said, and smart home, smart demand responsive devices, and also devices that will level the load for your home so the grid is happier. And this is my house. It's all electric. It's not too interesting. It's just all electric appliances. Here's some cost-saving tips, though. Start with an energy audit, and I think Judy Rachel this morning went over this pretty well. So make sure you know what you need before you go out and do it, and try to conserve as much energy before you go out to do it also. That'll reduce the size of the equipment you need, and that'll save you a significant amount of money. Evaluate the appliances and systems that are out there that you might be able to use. Some of them may not be familiar to you, and also examine what outlets you have. I was lucky when I installed our induction range. I pulled the gas stove out, and lo and behold, there was a 50 amp, 240 volt service there. So I didn't have to do any wiring. I just called up Home Depot and ordered the induction oven. They came out, pushed it in, and that was it. It was very easy install. Consolidate your work. So when you have your plan, if you're going to install solar first, like a lot of people do, make sure that your panel, if they have to touch your panel, make sure your panel is big enough to expand to the other things you want to add. I did that when I had solar installed. I had to increase the size of my breaker box because it didn't have enough breaker space. So they put in a bigger box, but I said, now I'm going to install a heat pump for heat pump HVAC and a heat pump water heater, which would draw, it's a 240 volt water heater. So I wanted a tap for that. And let's see, oh, and the EV charger. I wanted to have a 50 amp capable EV charger in the garage. So they did that. In fact, they even brought wires up into the attic and put it in a box so that the next electrician could just go up there and hook it up. So made it easy. And here's an excellent resource to get started. And I thought I was going to be unique with this one, but Judy Rachel mentioned it this morning. And so it's really a good one. It's got 90 pages of good stuff, and it's got product reviews of products that you've probably never heard of that are really interesting, and you should know about what's available. Time of use. I should mention a little bit about time of use. Everybody is probably on time of use. They kind of convert most people, except in certain cases. But check your rate plan because the rates change. And now it's not cheaper to run, your electricity isn't cheaper in the overnight period than it is during the day. So if you have the capability, charge, look at your plan, but it's probably going to be charging your EV in the afternoon if you can. And the reason I think we've seen this before is because, renewables, especially solar, are certainly abundant during daylight hours. And there's demand response programs that Dave from SCE mentioned. And so here's that again. I'm not going to go over the information. There's some more. This is about Wi-Fi connected devices. And here is kind of a list of some of their demand programs. How to avoid costs at peak power times? Well, one way is to, in the afternoon when the rates are low, heat your house up. If it's in the winter, heat your house up a little higher than normal. And then when it gets to that 4 o'clock time, set your thermostat down a little bit and coast through the peak power period. Storage. We've heard lots about storage today. It avoids the peak cost. It's added reliability. It gives you refrigerated goods, extra security, and you're more energy independent. So you need to have a bidirectional EV if you're going to take advantage of the EV as a battery. Avoiding panel upgrades. This is a big one for everybody. Here's a smart switch. So if you have a 30 amp dryer outlet in your garage, you can get a switch like this that breaks that circuit into 2 outlets where you can plug in your dryer and your EV, and you can switch back and forth between them. You can do it either manually or there's an automatic model that will give priority to one of the devices that you specify. And their meter collars are out now. I don't know if people covered this, but this is a great way to avoid having to touch your panel at all. So it involves a little device, a collar that goes right between the meter and the connection to the panel, and it taps off electricity from your solar panels. It'll allow you to put the electricity back in without going through your panel. And SCE has a program to do that. It's called, what is it called here? It's got quite the name here. It's Generation Meter Adapter for Net Energy Metering Customers. Yeah. Now, I don't know if they allow EVs to use this type of connection at present or not, but if they don't, they should. What do we have next? Oh, the Watt Diet calculator. Well, these are some other great resources, and I think we've heard of most of those. So Canary Media has a great series called Electrified Life, and they have a number of different articles that they've written about converting to all electric, and they're really good. Another thing you can do, instead of using 240 volt appliances, use 120 volt appliances. We have heat pump dryers now that are 120 volt. There are 120 volt water heaters, and this is something that anyone can do. There are a lot of them even have the same connections that your gas connection would be to the water supply. So all you have to do is take out your old water heater and connect up the lines and plug it into the wall, and you're done. So it shouldn't be a very expensive project to do that. And there are also some HVAC products that are 120 volt. Here's one that just straddles the windowsill and operates off of 120 volts. It heats and cools, and it, it'll condition 1 or 2 rooms in your house. And here's some resources for renters. Now, my experience, heat pump vacuum, HVAC, works like a water heater should. Bonus, you get air conditioning, and you get no smell when you start it up from being idle for, over the summer. That used to really bug me. There's no carbon monoxide worries, and it does make noise outside like a regular AC unit, but there are models that are really quiet now, so you won't annoy your neighbors if you do install one. Okay. And the contractor did the wiring to the panel for my installation, which was great. Here's my energy usage, and you can see it's mostly heating in the winter. An induction range. I should say our induction range. My wife uses it too. So induction ranges are fast. They really cook fast. They're very easy to clean, and that's important to me because I'm on cleanup duty, and all you have to do is take a wet cloth, and wipe it off. It's like glass, and nothing burns or sticks to it. So it's very easy. It's very safe. There's the only things that get hot are things that are materials that are metallic. So we use the countertop a lot of times for preparing food and serving food. We have a small kitchen, and that really helps out. We do that a lot. Heat pump water heaters. I have a heat pump water heater. It worked great for about a year and then stopped, but it was very efficient when it was working, and now it's in the electric only mode, and I'm not going to change it because if they change it out, they'll just throw it in the trash. So I'm going to just keep it until it dies. I have enough excess electricity to keep it going at the 4 kilowatt rating, almost 5 kilowatt rating that the water heater has. And this is the energy I use. It's quite a bit, 1,000 kilowatt hours per year. Heat pump dryer. Our dryer is not a heat pump; it's just a regular dryer. So there's nothing really to say about that. And this is the usage. It's only 176 kilowatt hours a year. And here's a summary of our usage. And I can get this summary because we have a energy monitor that puts little current transformers around the different circuits. It can monitor up to 16 circuits in your breaker panel, and it gives you a lot of data about your devices. So this is kind of a compilation of all that data, and you can see that EV charging, we only drive EVs, so the cost was $1,600, and so you can see different how it breaks down. Now, I think these numbers are a little bit low. I haven't done an accounting on it. I haven't called Deloitte and Touche to really verify this, so I don't know. And here again is this excellent resource. And this is one of the pages out of the excellent research. I think someone else had the same slide. And that's it. Thank you. And that QR code will go to a folder that has all of those resources, links, and lots of other stuff. So thank you very much. I haven't put the paper out, but it should be on the information booth. I'll go out there and put it up there right now. So you can go scan this code out there. It's also pretty easy. You can email me at wayne.electrify@gmail.com. That should be pretty easy to remember. Yeah, because I like to electrify stuff. So just shoot me an email and I'll get you on. I'll get you all those links. I'll get you to the Gmail. Thank you.
One way that the world is changing because of all this electrification, I saw this morning, there's an increased problem with thieves stealing breakers from people's circuit breaker boxes. You can resell them on the black market, make a bunch of money, wake up in the morning and there's no electricity in your house.
Hi, good afternoon. My name's George Vine. I live in Thousand Oaks, and I have electrified 2 houses in my history. This one here in La Cañada was built in 1967, and we electrified it over a 12-year period. When we completed it, we had the gas company come and remove the gas meter, so there was no gas service left. Our last full year electric bill, because we were on net metering 2.0, they trued up your bill at the end of the year for contributions to the grid versus how much you drew down. Anyways, our last full year bill was $50, which paid for all of our electricity, what used to be our gas bill and what used to be our gasoline bill, because we had 2 electric cars that we charged at this house. Actually, the bill was more than that, because every month they charge you what they call non-bypassable charges, which have nothing to do with your electrical consumption. And that was about 30 or 40 bucks a month. So we paid 30, 40 bucks a month plus $50. And that was the entire year's electric bill. This home was under net metering 2.0, which means that SCE paid us for electricity that we sent to the grid at the same rate as we would have to have bought that electricity if we needed to buy it. So it was, it was a wash. And so because it was new 2.0, it didn't make financial sense to have batteries, because SCE the grid was in effect your battery, storing the power that you sent to it until you needed it later on. And so it made no financial sense to own batteries. So this house had only solar, but with no batteries. Yeah, and just to reemphasize something that others have said, it's really important when you start off on a project like this, that you get a home energy audit, which may cost from $400 to $800 with an available $150 federal tax credit, but it's well worth the cost. That's because adding insulation and air sealing your house is relatively cheap, and improving home energy efficiency means that subsequent new equipment like heat pumps and solar panels can be sized smaller, and they'll be cheaper, and you'll save a lot more money than the cost of the energy audit. So this is our current home in Thousand Oaks, which was built in '96. We electrified this house over a 4-month period from January of this year to April. We did not have the gas company remove the gas meter, as we still use gas for the fireplace, the barbecue, and the pool heater. The house is under net metering 3.0, which means that the utility pays you next to nothing for the electricity that you send to the grid. They still charge you full price for what you take from them, though. Yeah, they pay you about 5 cents a kilowatt hour for power that you send to the grid. So batteries are required to make financial sense under net metering 3.0. And this house has 2 batteries totaling 10 kilowatt hours. If you have batteries, you can get through the whole day without drawing power from the grid. The batteries cover your electric needs when the sun is not shining. Without batteries, you would have to pay for grid power every day during the early morning and evening hours when the sun is not shining. During a sunny summer day, this house will generate about 3 times the amount of power we consume if we don't plug in our cars. On a day like that, we will import a half a kilowatt hour from the grid, generate about 62 kilowatt hours of power, and export 40 kilowatt hours to the grid. Plugging in the cars greatly increases electricity consumption. So the game becomes to minimize the power we are importing from the grid, as we have to pay for that, and minimize the power that we send to the grid, since we get so little compensation for it. Our most recent electric bill, monthly electric bill for this house was minus $40. So this is screenshots from my solar panels app. The one on the left shows what the power consumption and generation looks like when we don't plug in our car. And so the blue, the graph represents 24 hours from right to left, the graphs on the bottom. The blue represents how much power we're producing from the solar panels. The orange represents how much power our house is consuming. The green down below represents how much power we're sending to the batteries. The black down below represents how much power we're sending to the grid. The green at the bottom represents the state of charge of the batteries. From 0% at the bottom to 100% at the top, and it's over the same 24-hour period. So you can see that under those circumstances, we draw down on the batteries during the morning hours before the sun comes out. And then we start producing power from the solar panels, and that produces excess power in excess of the orange that we need to consume for the house. And so that goes back to the battery and fills it up again until it's 100% full. And then towards the end of the day, you can see when the sun stops shining, the battery starts drawing down again to pay for our electrical consumption when the sun has set. You can see on the other side, if you look at on the graph on the right, the screenshot on the right, that when we plug in a car, you can see how much power that draws. It draws an enormous amount of power. My Tesla charger draws 48 amps if I have the car charging at full power. And at 48 amps, my car will add 45 miles per hour to its range. So you can see what happens there is that when that car is charged in, there's not enough solar power to cover the usage of that car charger. And so it starts drawing down power from the battery. And you can see further that in a relatively short period of time, it exhausts the entire battery because the battery is 10 kilowatt hours. My car battery is 100 kilowatt hours. So you can see the big difference. And so you can see the black over the line on the grid on the left means that I'm now drawing power from the grid to augment the solar power to charge my car. So you can see how, if you want to not to minimize your bill, you got to make sure that situation doesn't happen, that you don't start drawing power from the grid. So one of the ways to do that is in the car app, I can have it pull less power from the grid so that it never exceeds what the sun is producing. Or you can have it exceed it as long as you got battery power, but when the battery goes to zero, then you draw down the car's draw so it doesn't exceed what the solar power is generating. So in both homes, we had to upgrade the electrical panels, mostly because of the car charger, which draws so much power. This is a 225 amp panel that's in our current home. And that was like about a $4,000 upgrade to the solar bill. This is the heat pump air handler in our current home. It's in the attic of our house. Our previous house had 2 natural gas heating systems, which when we purchased it, totaling 8 tons of heating power. As a result of our efficiency improvements, we were able to replace that with a single 5-ton heat pump system. The energy improvements for that house included replacing all of the existing windows and sliding glass doors, which were single pane aluminum sliders, with fiberglass dual pane low E windows and doors. The windows and doors in our new home, which was built in 1996, were already dual pane and didn't need replacement. This is the heat pump condenser in our new house. We purchased high efficiency variable speed systems for both houses. Regular air conditioning systems are either off or 100% on. So the system is continually cycling on and off all day long. The high efficiency systems cycle down, reduce their output to provide the minimum power needed to maintain the set temperature. So with these high efficiency systems, you don't hear your heating or air conditioning system in the house, and the system doesn't cycle on and off. It's always running at the same level. Whoops. Always running at the same level, and the house just stays at the same temperature. So it's actually much more comfortable. And these systems are also much more efficient than the kinds of systems that cycle back and forth. This is our heat pump water heater in the new house. The contractor originally installed it with the upper right vent that you can see on the right side of the tank facing right into the wall. And I mean, it's a vent, it's supposed to be vented out, but they had it facing right into the wall. And the noise from this, on the other side of the back wall there is the bedroom, and the noise, you know, when it was a gas heater, it made no noise, right? It was previously a gas heater, but when you put in a heat pump water heater, it makes a lot of noise when it turns on. They had to come back in and reinstall it and turn it around a little bit and put in a bunch of sound deadening equipment. So this is our original gas range. Interesting story. When we were looking at buying this house, the salesperson took us to this and said, "This is really the highlight of the house. This is the best thing. You'll just love this about the house. This Wolf 48-inch gas range with 8 burners on it." And we said, "No, it's got to go." So we got rid of it and replaced it with an induction range that's also 48 inches. Very difficult to find a 48-inch induction range. We had to go to Great Britain, which is where that came from. And we also bought one of these, which is a high efficiency pool pump. It's a lot quieter than the old one and much more efficient. And this is the car charger. You can see the Tesla charger against the wall in the middle of the picture there. It draws, as I said, 48 amps and charges that car pretty quickly. And finally, this is one of the 2 batteries that I have and the controls for the solar panels. The other battery, this is on the outside of the garage wall. The other battery is on the inside of the garage. So that's it. Thank you very much.
I'm going to talk about EV range anxiety. Anybody have EV range anxiety? Everybody does. It's a big topic. What I'm going to do is tell you some of my experiences, some of them fairly recent, but this is a screenshot of my Hyundai Ioniq 5, a trip to Las Vegas I programmed in, and it said when I did that, you don't have enough battery to get all the way to Las Vegas. Do you want to know where to charge? And I said, yes. And it gave me places to charge, 3 places, one of them in Santa Clarita, one in Barstow, and one in Baker. So the car knows these things, and there's no reason for you not to know it also. So pretty much any electric vehicle you get will give you information like this on the navigation system. But the other thing I did recently, about a month ago, was I rented a car in Chicago and drove to Nashville, a Tesla Model 3. And this was an interesting experience for me because I didn't know that much about Teslas, but it's pretty transparent if you know EVs at all. So what I did here, what this screenshot shows is the Tesla travel planner, and it would show you where to stop if you were planning a trip and where the charging stations are. Now, the Tesla I rented had minimum amount of range. It only had about 200 miles of range because it was old. It had 100,000 miles on it, 2019 Model 3. So it was not, I had to charge more often, but I really didn't have any trouble. I had to stop more than the 3 places it said here on this trip planner. So what happened was I went to another website, PlugShare. Remember that one, PlugShare. It's a good website that gives you all kinds of information about where to charge your electric vehicle. And you can see all of those orange dots are places where you can charge a Tesla. I wound up stopping in Lafayette, Indiana, and bypassing Indianapolis and stopping in Columbus, Indiana. So as I said, this is more than a normal Tesla, but it was still very convenient. And then from Columbus, I stopped in Louisville and charged there, and then another charge in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. That's right in the middle of that chart. And then I made it all the way to Nashville. So that was really easy. I mean, Teslas are very easy to charge. You just go find the charger, plug it in, and don't even have to worry about it. One interesting thing about about PlugShare is that they will give you information about the charging stations. This is the one in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. You can see there on the on the left, information about the charger. So they're really small. You may not be able to see them, but there's green check marks on all 5 of those entries, and those are individual people who have gone to this station and checked in with PlugShare to give a status report. And all of these are green, which means it's doing great, no problems. It's not busy, you should be able to use it with no issues. So after that, I decided, let's find out what would have happened if I'd had my car, my Hyundai Ioniq 5, on that same trip. So this is a CCS vehicle. So I went to PlugShare again, and in truth, it did show quite a few places for me to charge on that trip from Chicago to Nashville. And again, it goes through the website. It goes through for each individual station what the status is. This particular place, this was at Lafayette, Indiana again. Green check marks, no problem. This place is good. Nobody's having any issues. Feel free to stop there. Here's another one this is Clarksville, Indiana. That's really right next to Louisville. And there were a couple of red marks. You see them on the bottom, little red checks. This place may be having a little bit of a problem. So this is information you want to know if you're planning a trip. You want to know, well, this place may be busy. It may be having a problem. You might want to make sure that you're in good shape when you stop there, things like that. And then another stop that it recommended was at the National Corvette Museum. There were a bunch of interesting different reports on this station. And in fact, you can't read the box up at the top, but it says under repair. Again, good information to know if you need to know where you're going to charge your CCS EV. So my conclusion was that between Louisville and Nashville is about 180 miles, so I probably could make it. on a full charge in the Ioniq 5. It has a range of about 260 miles. But it's good to know that this other charging station at the National Corvette Museum was kind of out of service. All of this information is out there, so there's really there's no reason for you to be unprepared, and it really does take preparation. Rather than driving a gas car, it does pay to look ahead, make some plans, figure out where you're going to charge, so you'll have a good idea what you're going to be doing. Another thing that my friend Wayne has brought up before is charging at RV parks, and you have actually done this. I have not, but I read up on it a little bit, and my recommendation is phone ahead, because not all RV parks are going to have electrical hookups that are sufficient for charging an electric vehicle. This particular panel looks pretty good to me. It looks like it's set up with a variety of plugs and amperages that you might be able to use. You might also need to take with you a portable level 2 charging system like this one. You can see, I hope you can see that it has a plug there that you can plug into some of these outlets. You may need adapters. There may be some things you need, but it is possible to do. So here's another situation where someone has plugged their charging adapter with the blue light there on the left into a panel there at at a RV park. And this RV park seems to have set up a situation where any EV could come in and charge. I don't know if they were paying for it. There's a meter there, maybe they are, but there's different availabilities at different parks. So again, call ahead. And if you really have range anxiety, you can do this. So that's it. Thank you. Well, now we're taking questions.
Yeah, it's been really, is this on? Hello? Oh, yeah, I guess it is on, sort of. Yeah, it's been really reassuring to me to be able to drive into any RV park. I had to do that when I was visiting Dinosaur National Park, National Monument. There's not much out there. I mean, the dinosaurs have left already. So there's not much out there, and there are RV parks out there, and I just plugged in. I had the adapter for the Tesla mobile charger. You want to get a 50 amp adapter, which is a 1450 NEMA plug, and you're ready to go. It took a half hour to get 30 miles of range, which was enough to get me to the next charger. I would have made it anyway, but why risk it, right? And I just sat there and read a book for an hour, had lunch, it's not that big a deal. And I've gone to Montana and Washington State and Texas. That was an adventure. I had to go to an RV. Well, I had to go to an RV park to get charged there. That was quite an experience because it was a hippie commune, I think. But it was free. So
I have a question about driving in the cold. We are so fortunate here in Southern California. I've never had to worry about that. But how much does the range decrease in the cold weather? I've heard a lot about this.
yeah, it decreases a substantial amount. I think it's probably 25 to 30% maybe. It's pretty substantial. So you need to take that into account. There are some battery technologies, sodium batteries in particular, which are being used in China right now for EVs. It hasn't really hit the US market yet, but they go very much lower temperature, operate a much lower temperature than the lithium cells. And they are less expensive, and hopefully we'll have some home batteries that are made of sodium technology, because they're safer too. So they're less expensive and safer. They're bigger though, heavier, but they have their place, and China's using them.
I just wanted to add that I used to live in the Midwest near Chicago. So I was interested when all of these reports came out from Chicago about people running around with their hair on fire because they couldn't charge their EVs. So I checked out a Zoom call from Chicago, and they explained it. most all EVs have a temperature maintenance system where it keeps them cold or it warms them up if they need it. Keeps them at a level temperature, right?
Right.
So what was happening in Chicago is that all the batteries were super cold and people were plugging them in and it wouldn't start to charge. That was because it was warming up the battery in order to prepare it for the proper charging temperature. People didn't know this, so they assumed that the charger wasn't working, and so they unplugged it and went to another charger, and everybody was running around like bad people. But that was what was happening. These are things that EV drivers need to know. So there are ways to get around it.
Yeah, and another thing that the Tesla app has is the number of stations that are open at the location. So you can tell also how many cars are. Yeah, so that's really good to know too. But Tesla has so many chargers. I mean, there's some stations that are over 60 chargers in one location. And the Tesla charging plug standard is now becoming the North American standard. It's called the North America Charging Standard, NACS. And many manufacturers are going to that. So that's going to make charging a lot simpler and open up a whole variety of chargers for everybody. So let's hope that network gets going. Tesla's got it right now, and hopefully it'll be opened up to everybody.
Hi, I had a question for George and then ask for questions. You said you still had your gas for your heating your pool. And I just wondered, because that's one of my main things I'm looking for is how to heat my pool with electric or solar and I just wondered, have you not found anything that?
Yeah, there are heat pump pool heaters.
Mhm.
But the problem is they're generally a lot less power than the gas pool heaters, and they like cost twice or three times as much. So I thought I'd just try to wait them out and see if the prices come down.
Well, I've had a gas heater in my pool for 25 years and I'm still waiting.
Yeah.
And it cost me like 500 to 1,000 to heat it up that first year.
Yeah.
And I never used it since
Never
then.
used
So, thank you.
Pool covers really help in that instance. You have a pool cover. Oh.
She mentioned pools up there and I asked her and she said the guy was getting an electric pool heater and then he was gonna put it through the, with the solar panels.
Mhm.
But I didn't know there were electric pool heaters.
Yes, there are.
Is there something wrong with those?
Well, they're just, they're not being manufactured in that large a quantity, so the prices are pretty high. And like George says, they don't have the BTU output that, the gas ones do at this time.
Do electric vehicles cost more to insure? And how does that fit into the total cost of ownership?
You know what I'm saying?
I've heard that Teslas are a little more expensive because they're more difficult to repair if you have an accident. But I did not find that my insurance went up all that much when I got my electric vehicle. So I don't know. I think you need to shop around and check it out. Yeah.
I don't know the difference because I haven't driven a gas car for, 10 years.
Actually, if you go to Costco, to their insurance company, not like I'm doing a plug for Costco, but their insurance rates were even lower than a regular car, like really low, half the price.
Yeah. And Costco credit cards give you, I think, a 4% rebate on your charging. Not a plug for Costco though.
Just a comment on the range impacts in cold weather. A big part of it is the cabin heating system because most of these vehicles use electric resistance. So a lot of manufacturers are looking at changing to a heat pump system, which is, as we've established before, 3 times as efficient. So once more vehicles have those, we'll see the cold weather impacts be a bit less. There's still obviously the battery conditioning and other factors, but yeah, that's a big piece of why cold weather sees that 20 to 30% range dip.
Right. Yeah, it's my understanding now that Tesla does have heat pumps for the battery conditioning. And I think it's a two-stage heat pump, so it can go down to like minus 30 or something. So they have definitely learned from experience.
So I have a question for George. What did you find about having your all-electric home with no gas meter? How that affected the resale, if it did?
Did you sell your home?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it affected it. It was,
Use the mic, George.
I don't think it affected it. You know, during the sales process, nobody even asked about it. I was just amazed.
To unlock your device.
No.
And we ended up getting the price that we were hoping for. And again, you know, I must have, there must have been 150 people went through my house. And I don't think anybody even talked about the fact that it was all electric, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'd really like to see energy evaluations of houses before they're sold. You know, what are the costs of your heating, and, you know, what is the total energy cost of the house? And I think we need to push for that because, you know, people should know what it's going to cost to, you know, maintain their home. And this, you know, maybe here in Ventura, it's not that big a deal, but, you know, in some desert areas, you know, like Lancaster or something where it can be 115 one part of the season and, you know, minus 20 the another part. So, you know, the rates could, you know, the energy costs could be substantial.
Well, this has been a fascinating discussion. Let's thank the speakers. And that concludes the session.